Hopefully you were able to identify which emotions were either validated or not in your family of origin in the exercise that you just completed. You know, one of the most important practices that you can work on is being able to identify your emotions accurately and have them validated. Do you know what an emotional flood is? It is the moment when your brain is so flooded with an emotion that it overwhelms the thinking part of the brain, and a person often behaves in survival patterns like fight, flee, and freeze. Sometimes when people talk, they'll include critical and blaming language. And whenever that happens, the person being critical is likely emotionally flooded. Now, many of us know what it's like to fly off the handle when dealing with a particular issue or person. I mean, let's go back to the driving example, right? When somebody cuts in front of you on I-75 and you simply feel this giant wave of anger come over you, we call that an emotional flood. The emotional brain takes over and it alerts your body to react to the perceived threat. Oh, this is dangerous. And so adrenaline is created to protect yourself from harm. And your arms get tense and you push on the horn as if it needed extra force for it to work, right? And you press the horn for the next several seconds thinking that it'll produce a real positive result. And then you might decide to ride the person's bumper, believing again that that'll teach them a lesson. But neurologically, the emotional brain is trying to protect you from harm. And so it alerts the body to react without giving the logical side of the brain a chance to weigh in on it. Now, given some time, if the thinking brain could produce a logical thought or two, it might suggest that maybe there was a reason the driver moved over in front of you so quickly, and maybe you could release the hand pressure on the horn because maybe the person was just very confused, or maybe the person had very disturbing news about someone they love, or maybe the person was late for a meeting. And if the thinking brain could interact, you might find yourself much more able to moderate and maybe reduce the emotions felt and therefore consider a variety of responses. Neuroanatomist Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor states that it takes 90 seconds to metabolize and soothe emotions. She describes the 90-second rule as, I quote, "Once triggered, the chemical released by my brain surges through my body and I've got a physiological experience. Within 90 seconds from the initial trigger, the chemical component of my anger has completely dissipated from my blood and my automatic response is over. If, however, I remain angry after those 90 seconds have passed, then it's because I have chosen to let that circuit continue to run." Our thinking is what keeps emotions alive and well. The difference between flooding and more manageable experiences of our emotions is one of great magnitude. You reach the point when your thinking brain, the part that can take in gray areas and consider other sides and stay aware of the real state of affairs, it's shut out. Your sympathetic nervous system is activated and prepares you for battle or for flight. And in this state, you lose some of your capacity for rational thought. See, science describes this as a decrease of activity in your prefrontal cortex, the center of higher cognition. And so the fight, the flee, or the freeze response proceeds. And we are primed to create this cascade of actions and behaviors that will always make things worse. I mean, we end up using words that are over the top and just won't provide an opportunity for communication. If there's criticism, if there's blaming, shaming, the speaker creates environments where the listener more than likely will refuse to participate. So the goal would be to catch ourselves in the process of flooding and execute what's called a 30-minute deflooding exercise, using a series of distracting thoughts that help the emotional flood to metabolize and to regain the ability to regulate our emotional world. So here are some ways to deflood. So you call a timeout on yourself, a 30-minute timeout, using distracting activities. Now this is important because if you spend the next 30 minutes ruminating about what triggered your emotional behavior to begin with, you'll stay flooded. So try these things. Controlled breathing exercises, exercise by walking or jogging or biking or doing core strengthening exercises, listening to a podcast, reading a blog, watching a YouTube video, taking a shower. Develop the habit of using I statements, because when speaking to others, you need to regain focus on the problem rather than the person, right? Instead of saying, "You make me so angry," you consider saying, "I'm feeling very angry. I'm feeling frustrated right now." So before next week, here's what I want you to do. To make sure you go through these following exercises by downloading the Conflict Guide app, creating your own self-soothing deflooding strategy because you are responsible for your responses, and create your strategy for regulating your emotions. And then review the speaking formula, which is speaking congruently with emotion and thought.